Hello, I'm the and welcome back to the video. Today let's talk about something I see a whole bunch of in my comments, and that is to do with 4JStudios and the console version of Minecraft. So I see the whole range of opinion on this subject, from people saying like, oh, I really love what 4J did this most recent update, they're great, to people saying literally the exact opposite, like, oh, I really hate this limitation on console, I hate how lazy 4J are, and I really want to overthrow them or something. And I don't understand how you overthrow a game developer, but I generally see so many comments on both sides of the aisle on this, and I've always been so confused as to why it's such a polarizing subject, so I figured why not try and tackle it with today's video, maybe divide down the middle, and explain, exactly in my opinion, whether 4JStudios are doing a good job or not. So hopefully you do will enjoy today's video, like it if you do, because it helps out the channel, and let's know you do enjoy this sort of stuff. But with that said, let's get straight into what we're shouting, and let me just quickly start before I say anything else, and just, this is like full disclosure, I have been, I am somewhat friendly with 4J, I've gone to like one event, it was a Microsoft event, but still, I've probably had like more conversations or contact with like 4JStudios staff members than the average person, and whether you want to look at that and say, well, that means you're going to be entirely biased, or you want to look at it the other way and you want to say, oh, well, I guess that means that, you know a thing that maybe we don't. I don't know for certain, I'm just throwing it out there. That is, like the full disclosure on this whole thing. But with that said, let's get straight into it, shall we? And let's start by just talking about how 4JStudios got control of the console version in the first place, because you might be confused as to that. You might look at that from afar and be like, wait, so Mojang makes the PC version, Mojang makes the Pocket Edition, and technically Microsoft is a little bit involved there, but there's two offices for that, it's mostly made by Mojang themselves too, but for some reason the console version is outsourced to 4JStudios. So why is that? And there's a few reasons, and it's hard to get the exact specifics of the deal between Notch at the time and Microsoft, but as far as I can tell, and this is the best of my ability, Notch wanted to make a console version, but he didn't want to necessarily be hands-on with it and make it himself, so he tried to find a studio like Mojang, in terms of like the size and in terms of like the passion for games or whatever, that actually worked on the console before. And funnily enough, 4JStudios has worked on, before Minecraft, which is pretty much all they do now. I don't know if they've done anything else in a while, but basically they used to make console ports for a bunch of really big games, so stuff like Oblivion for the PlayStation 3. There's also a lot of games if you go further back, like the Powerpuff Girls. I made a whole video on it, I'd recommend you check it out sometime, but that's how they got control in the first place. Basically, unlike Notch didn't necessarily want to work on himself, and he wanted someone with console experience to make the game, which is why 4JStudios actually made it in the first place. So you might then follow up from that and think like, why did you really need a console-specific studio? And bear in mind that, now we accept that there's three versions of Minecraft, there's the PE, there's the console edition, and there's the PC, but bear in mind at the time there was just Minecraft, and it was kind of confusing as to how it would work on any other platform, especially mobile, especially consoles, how they're going to make all the, the crafting, the this, the that. There was lots of questions as to how they're going to make it work, and that's why 4JStudios were tasked with doing so. So they made the game in around 8 months, I think it was, from when they announced the game to when it actually came out, which if you keep in mind, compared to the PC's development cycle, which had been out for like 2.5 years, 3 years of development, I was actually pretty impressed for the time, and it came out like 5 versions behind the PC, which is one of those decisions I'm not entirely sure I understand, but it is going to be relevant later, so we'll get back to that. But for now, just keep in mind that a lot of people like to, criticize this whole thing, because the Pocket Edition's been receiving so many more updates than the console, even though the console urgently needs them because of this reason or that reason, so is the PC, etc. Why exactly is that? So there's actually, again, this is something that you can address directly and say, well, although the Pocket Edition is having more updates, it is also even further behind the console, and in fact, they're moving at roughly the same trajectory to eventually catch up to each other. Because bear in mind, again, the console's following the PC, but it caught up from, 2 years worth of updates being behind, to now it's, like 4 months of updates behind? Less than that if you want to count it that way. So, yeah, bear in mind, that's how fast the console's caught up, and now the Pocket Edition still needs some catching up to do, because when it first came out, it didn't have survival, it didn't have the never, it didn't have the end, it didn't have all these massive features, they had to slowly add them, and because they were doing, because they had so many more features to add, they were doing more frequent updates, and I think that's the simplest way to describe the difference between updates per platform. You can look at it and you can say, well, it means the Pocket Edition team is the best and the PC is the worst, but I'm not sure that's how it is at all. I think, they're all just trying to move to roughly the same trajectory, and I think that is just a Microsoft overall plan that happened to work out that way. So yeah, as far as the first criticism is if they're not making updates fast enough, well, they're making them faster than the other Minecraft, they're not making them quite as fast as the Pocket Edition by a little bit, except this last year there was the same number of updates. They're not making them quite as fast as the Pocket Edition, but they're making them so much faster than the PC. Bear in mind, in 2015, there was no updates for Minecraft the PC, there was 2 for the console, which as you can probably work out is, it's better. And yeah, I think that's the big thing when it comes to updates. There is more on the other platforms, but should there be more than that? I think perhaps so, but I think it's a bigger issue on the other platforms, and I think the only reason that there's not is because you've seen this year how they can split the updates into bigger bits, but it's just something they weren't doing before. They released, the equivalent of 3 updates in one in 2015, I think it was. Like the 3 PC update size things. They would have all been significant updates by themselves, but they all came together. For 2016, I guess that would have been 2014, not 20, and then 2015, they combined 2 massive PC updates. 2 years worth of PC updates in an update that only took 6 months to develop. When you consider this sort of stuff, they're actually working very fast. It's just they're trying to consolidate stuff into updates. So yeah, going forwards in the future, I think they're releasing more updates, but I don't think that just makes it better. I don't think, it was worse before and it's better now. I think there's the same amount of content. It's just coming out in fewer updates for the console, and that's because of the console development cycle. But what about the other big issue you say, well, okay, you know what, you can put aside the update thing, because there's just as many roughly as the PC, but what about the lack of features like infinite worlds? What about the, only 8-player multiplayer, the lack of servers, the lack of custom skins? And although each of these issues is its whole own thing, to go through it briefly, infinite worlds is entirely to do with console manufacturers. The only reason we can't have them is because, Microsoft, Sony, I think Nintendo too, have limits on how big a save size can be. If you hit that limit while you're playing, that would ruin your game. And, you can still do it right now, it's just technically a lot harder. That's the sort of stuff where they really don't have much control besides having to say, oh, I guess so. When it comes to stuff like, servers, like how are you going to make servers work on console? Who's going to run the servers? Like, do 4J have to run them? In which case, that's a whole, back-end, servers they have to buy and stuff like that. Otherwise, you say like, oh yeah, they're welcome PC servers. Bear in mind, they're different versions of the game. You can't make something like that work. Every single one of these things where you look into it and you say, that sucks, they don't have it. It does suck, but it's not, it's this whole thing where I think if you really look into the issue, it's not something where the game developers are directly at fault. It just happens to be that, the PC was developed with that in mind, and the console couldn't be developed with that in mind because it's a console game. However, the custom skins thing, I think, is the last one we can just say, they've confirmed, they've given different reasons for why it's not possible, which makes me think that really at this point it's because skin packs make a lot. But that's the sort of thing that I hear, and I'm like, I would like to see a justification as to why it can't be done if there's really a legal reason, if there's really a, like the Wii U can't do it. And even once we go down that conspiracy train, if I think maybe they're just doing it to sell more skin packs, because they must be making a lot of money on that, right? But even once you go down that train, it's probably not even a 4J decision. Bear in mind that sort of business, macro stuff is probably controlled by Microsoft directly, including like, the prices of stuff like, you have to imagine that's a Microsoft thing. So can you complain at 4J for that? I'm not certain. I think, but can you complain at Microsoft either? I don't know either. But then who do you complain at? That's where I think the big thing is, the lack of like any real understanding of where the accountability is. Is it with Mojang, who sets the overall vague plan? Is it with Microsoft that sets like the marketing stuff? Or is it with 4J that's developing it? I don't know for certain, but I think that's where the big confusion comes from. The fact that we're not being communicated with, and we don't know who to like express the discontent with. And I think when you look at issues like custom skins, or even if you look at something like updates where there's just less of them but they're combined, until you hear the full picture, or even, which we can't hear the whole full picture of for certain things, it's hard to really understand entirely. And I think, that's my kind of point when we go through all of this. If you actually look deep into any issue, it's hard to really blame it on any particular party, and I think therefore it's hard to blame it directly on 4J. However, there's also a few things I wanted to mention here as far as like the opposite side of things as to why, it might be excusable that it takes a lot longer to, make plans for the console, and, why certain features took so long, like battle mode or something like that, why you might look at those and say like, oh, they should have been done this. But bear in mind, every single time they release an update, because the console is much harder to, actually get stuff released for, they have to develop the update, the actual features for their base Minecraft console code. They have to make sure it runs on each of the 6 consoles without reducing the frame rate. If it does, they have to optimize the game code, make sure that it does work. I actually spoke to, a few 4J programmers at Minecon last year, and they said, yeah, a lot of the work each update is making sure that they can continue to run, because unlike a PC in the Pocket Edition, where you can assume that people get new phones each year, and those phones get steadily more powerful, so you can make each update, just take more power, you can't do that with a console. You can't assume someone's getting a new PS3 each year, because that same PS3 has been in production since like 2007 maybe, or 2006. Same with the 360, like they're really old consoles, and trying to get all this stuff to run them is like a significant part of why the updates take so long. And when you put all of that in perspective, I think you can say that there are a lot of things 4J could be doing better, but are they doing a bad job? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of areas where you can look at it and you can say they're doing a good job, and I think all the other areas, I think it's just a lack of like true transparency. Like, I think, the one thing that you can look at the developer and say, yeah, they're not doing that as well as they should, is if you look at something like perhaps, the fact that they have the one Twitter account, they only really announce stuff just before it's coming out, which means there's months of just silence, and that's something people don't like to hear from a game they really like. Like, I'm personally passionate about the game, a lot of you are too. If you're playing it every day for like, 2 months and you don't hear anything, just, oh yeah, we're working on bug fixes right now, maybe something else, that's the sort of thing that isn't quite as exciting to people as when they hear that, oh yeah, Jeb's working on the 1.12 update and he's just about to announce a theme. It's a little bit more exciting. I don't know what the exact solution is to doing that with a company like 4J, but I think it's something that could go a long way, because again, back in the very early days, I feel like at least, they were slightly more active with the community in some way. Like, people felt like they knew 4JStudios, and like, when they were hinting this thing, it was like big, exciting stuff for everyone, whereas it doesn't feel that way now. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's my personal perception, maybe it's like our collective perceptions, maybe I'm just entirely wrong, maybe you disagree with everything I said. I'd love to hear in the comments down below, but yeah, that's my opinions on this whole thing, and yeah, I'd love to hear yours in the comments. Thank you all very much for watching. Like the video if you did like it, because it helps out the channel a lot. Let us know you do this sort of stuff. Share the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you're new around here, because I have videos like this one every single day on my channel, and if subscribed, you'll see them daily on your homepage. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye. bye.